Ooh. Hey everybody, it looks like my camera's gone grainy again. Hold up. Just a second. I got this. Okay, I don't know why it does that, but it does that. Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome back. Welcome back, everybody in the chat. We got another guy, we got Kimberly. Scouse is here. Early for once. Nah, just kidding. Bobby, howdy Bob. Big Hole Art. Welcome, Petros here again. Necrodancer, welcome back. Hey, Tyler. Oh, damn, you're prepping again. Okay. Alrighty, welcome back, everyone. Now, let's run through it again. What do I gotta say? Welcome to the stream. If you want to help these streams, help out with these streams, you can give a one-time donation. You can help out by donating to crypto wallets. You can become a YouTube member. Yada 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 yada. Man, I gotta get like a script going or something. I hate doing those. Anyway, if you want to follow along in these readings, by the way, of Manly P. Hall's secret teachings of all ages, you can come to this site, the Agora. There should be a link in the chat. You can just go to the library and follow along with us in this humble live stream as we go through Manly P. Hall's magnum opus, which he did when he was like 20. It's crazy. Thank you, Bob. You already gave like $5. Let's cook. Damn straight. Let's go.
I know what that means.
Good. We are cooking today. So chapter 2, we made it through a chapter. Let's keep going. So I think these ancient mysteries chapters, there's like 3 of them or 4. Manly lays the foundation. So we'll just jump right into it. Part 2. The entire history of Christian and pagan Gnosticism. Howdy, Nulu in the chat. Okay, so we're going to get some Gnosticism here. This is interesting because keep in mind, Manly wrote this, I believe he wrote this when he was 28. So it was published in the late 1920s, I believe. Gnosticism wasn't, it wasn't what it was back then. Pista Sophia had been translated into English by G.R.S. Mead, and like the Book of Jehu was around, but that was like a scholars only kind of thing. There was no Nag Hammadi library. That came later in the 1940s. So let's see what he's gonna say. Entire history of Christian and pagan Gnosticism is shrouded in the deepest mystery and obscurity. R.I.P. Manly, 20-year-old Manly would have loved the Nag Hammadi library. For while the Gnostics were undoubtedly prolific writers, little of their literature has survived. RIP. They brought down upon themselves the animosity of the early Christian church. And when this institution reached its position of world power, it destroyed all available records of the Gnostic cultus. Damn straight they did. It happened in bits and pieces. I think really from like everyone's like, oh, Council of Nicaea, 300 AD. It's really the council, what was the one in 500 AD? It was like the Second Council of Constantinople. That was the one, it was the council where they made Saint Origen, a heretic. I think that council is like the turning point. Because every council before that is deciding who's a Christian, and then councils after that is deciding who's not a Christian. Like, we gotta cut out the heretics. And then, like, the crescendo is the Albigensian Crusade, like 1000 AD or something, where the Crusade's internal to Europe, where they kill the rest of the pagans. That's probably where the last vestiges of Gnosticism and heresy get deleted. Although, I should just say, it just goes underground, and then the world of... when the Gnostics die in Europe, the age of alchemy begins, which is interesting. So let's see what Manly says. They brought down upon themselves the animosity. Christian church, institution, world power, Gnostic cultus. The name Gnostic means wisdom or knowledge. So, gnosis is Greek for knowledge, so a Gnostic is a knower. And is derived from the Greek gnosis, The members of the order claimed to be familiar with the secret doctrines of early Christianity. And that's like a lot of Gnostic Gospels start like that. The Gnostic Gospels usually start with, it's either Jesus kind of at the end of the Bible, post-resurrection, giving and he, it's like the Pistis Sophia starts with post-resurrection Jesus ascending, and then it's like 3 years later he descends and gives teachings, because there's this whole thing about there's Jesus post-baptism giving teachings, then there's Jesus post-resurrection, but the Gnostics are like, no, we are post-ascension Jesus. Jesus ascended, he came back down and gave more teachings, and these are post-ascension teachings. They're extra. So it's like Gnostic Gospels either start that way, or they start with like a specific apostle meeting, having a vision of Jesus after his ascension, then being like, hey John, or hey Peter. So that's why you have books like the Secret Book of Jita. What is he, Indian? No, Secret Book of Peter, or Secret Book of like John, or Secret Book of whatever. Those are like when the apostle then has a vision of Jesus, giving them the extra juicy stuff. So the Apocryphon of John is the Secret Book of John. That's all that word is. That's like the secret sauce. Hey, self-dribbling basketball esoteric program, welcome. As a gamer, I like Christianity because a core tenet is respawning. Okay. You could say Jesus came back and gave secret teachings of all ages. Exactly. It's like in a show where a character says the name of the show and you're like, oh, you know what's going down? That's exactly what it was like. So the secret doctrines of the early Christianity, they interpreted the Christian mysteries according to pagan symbolism. Their secret information and philosophic tenets they concealed from the profane and taught a small group only of especially initiated persons. So, this is the perspective of Gnosis. I got a different perspective. Secret Book of Jita going off in the chat, huh? Yeah. My dyslexia strikes again. No, a lot of people have this perspective of Gnosis. It's like, of Gnosticism, I should say. Oh, they've got these secret teachings, or they're interpreting it this way, or they're using pagan symbolism, or it's demiurgs, or they're dualists. What makes a Gnostic is in the name. The reason why Gnostics were dangerous is because they didn't believe that salvation arrives through pistis, or faith. Like, if you are just a normal person and then you start believing in Jesus, that does nothing. That was the whole Gnostic thing. It's like, if you change your opinion, nothing happens. True change comes with knowledge. True salvation comes with knowledge. So, for the Gnostics, their eschatology, or their soteriology, isn't based around faith in Christ. It's based around you gaining knowledge, and that knowledge is what brings salvation. And Jesus is just kind of like an initiator in that sense. So Jesus is still important. He's like the initiator who initiates you. But it's the knowledge you gain is the thing that triggers salvation. That's what makes a Gnostic a Gnostic. Not the, demiurgs, secret pagan symbolism. That's my take, at least. That's how I define it. Which apostle went to India, says Craig. Howdy, Craig, by the way. I believe it was Thomas. All of the other apostles kind of stayed around. Some went here and some went there, but I'm pretty sure Thomas went really far. There's some, hilarious story with Thomas of why he went to India. The story is like, Thomas was going around, giving teachings, and then Jesus does that. You know how Jesus does that thing where he transforms into a person and then comes up and speaks to you, and then you only realize it's Jesus kind of after a while you're talking? That kind of happens to Thomas. So Thomas is walking down a market square, and then some guy is like, hey, you got to go to India. And Thomas is like, what? No. And then he realizes Jesus, and he's like, bro, you're my master. I'm sorry, but it's just too hard, okay? And then Jesus is like, oh, okay, you're not going to go to India? That's fine. And then they're in a market square, right? Jesus goes to a slave trader and says, hey, that guy over there, he's my slave. You're going to India, right? Cool. I'll sell you that guy. And so this slave trader who's going around the going around the trade routes, who's going to go to India, he's like does a deal with Jesus and is like, oh, you're going to sell that guy? Yeah, sure, I'll buy that guy. He looks great. So Jesus literally sells Thomas into slavery, and the slaver just comes up to Thomas and is like, hey, yo, you're my slave now. And Thomas is like, what? What the hell? I'm not a slave. And the guy's like, points to Jesus standing like in the middle of the market square and says, that guy there, that's your master, right? And Thomas is like, and like looks and goes, he's my master. And then it's like, well, he sold you to me, so you're my slave. And that's how like Thomas gets to India. Jesus literally sells him into slavery, and then he gets taken on a trip to India, and that's how he ends up there. Like, that's the story, you know. But I found that hilarious when I first read that. I was like, that's pretty funny. That's pretty funny. That's like Jesus master trolling. It's like, you don't want to do it? Okay, that's fine. And then he just trolls Thomas into going to India. That's amazing. I was like, hilarious. Another guy asks, doesn't every occultist, well, most, yearn for knowledge? Wouldn't occultists be considered Gnostic in that sense? Yeah, and so that's the thing. Via my definition of gnosis, technically a lot of things come under that rubric, like Buddhism. Buddhism, therefore, via its very nature, you know, in Buddhism, what's the cause of suffering? Ignorance. What's the solution? Knowledge, enlightenment. So therefore, Buddhism is the ultimate form of gnosis. So it's, you know, it's hard, but it's like, fundamentally, yeah. We all thirsty for, and it's not just knowledge as in data, it's something that actually transforms you. Basoc in the chat. Hello, Richard. Hello, Basoc. Schizoprophet, welcome, welcome. Occultism versus Gnosticism is more an issue of secrets. Yeah, sure. Hey, LocOS, T-Rex, welcome, welcome. Now let's get back into it. I literally did a paragraph and I've already yapped for like 10 minutes straight. Simon Magus, the magician of New Testament fame, is often supposed to have been the founder of Gnosticism. If this be true, if this be true, what is he speaking like a pirate? If this be true, my hearties, the sect was formed during the century after Christ, and is probably the first of the many branches which have sprung from the main trunk of Christianity. Everything with which the enthusiasts of the early Christian church might not agree, they declared to be inspired by the devil. I mean, yeah, they do that still. They do that still. I think, what is it, what's the line? 2 Corinthians 11:14? Fucking... 2 Corinthians 11:14. And so, no wonder, Satan himself masquerades as an angel of light. That one Bible verse gets a lot of footwork. It's like literally any Christian you ever meet, and it's like, it's not even, like, look, there's wisdom in this. There's wisdom in that line. But this Bible verse isn't used for wisdom, it's used as a weapon. For when a Christian isn't confronted with something they don't like, therefore, devil. That Simon Magus had mysterious and supernatural powers is conceded even by his enemies. Is he going to go into the story of how, like, Simon Magus died in, like, a magic battle with St. Peter? But by his enemies. But they maintained that these powers were lent to him by the infernal spirits of... I thought it was going to say infernal spirits and furries. No. Infernal spirits and furies. Furies which they asserted were his ever-present companions. Undoubtedly, the most interesting legend concerning Simon is that which tells of his theosophic contest with Apostle Peter. Okay, so he's going to talk about it. While the two were promulgating their differing doctrines in Rome, according to the story that the church fathers have preserved, Simon was to prove his spiritual superiority by ascending to heaven in a chariot of fire. he was actually picked up and carried many feet in the air by invisible powers. So he levitated in front of, like, the console there or whatever. When St. Peter saw this, he cried out in a loud voice, ordering the demons, spirits of the air, to release their hold upon the magician. The evil spirits, when so ordered by the great saint, were forced to obey. Simon fell a great distance and was killed. So this is the story. Simon was basically used his magical powers, his cities, to levitate, but his power didn't come from himself. It came from invoking spirits of the airs to... So if he had that as a faculty in himself, like a yogi, there would have been a force underneath him which pushed him up. But instead he invoked spirits of the air to lift. So it's not a push-up, it's a lift via spirits of the air. And so basically St. Peter did a dispersal spell, dispersed the spirits of the air, and Simon Magus basically fell and broke his legs. And that's how Peter won, basically. That's what's up. That's what's up. So remember, guys, when casting when you're in your shadow wizard money gang, make sure there's no wizards around you using counter spells when you're showing off to your gang, or else, you know, bad stuff will happen. Killed, which decisively proved the superiority of Christian powers. I don't know, man. This story is undoubtedly manufactured out of whole cloth. Oh man, come on. As it is only one of many accounts concerning his death, few of which agree, as more and more evidence is being amassed to the effect that St. Peter was never in Rome. Its last possible vestige of authenticity is rapidly being dissipated. Alas, alas. Peter casts counterspell. Exactly. That's it. When you try to flex, you gotta watch out for counterspells whenever you're flexing, boys. Magical combat in Christianism. Yeah, it's right there, man. It's right there. The only problem, we don't hear about this much nowadays just because, you know, they'll talk about it, I guess, in the Catholic Church, but if you're raised Anglican, like I was raised, if you're raised Protestant, I was raised specifically Anglican. It's super fucking boring. It's like the vanilla of Christianity, the Diet Coke of Christianity. You don't even get cool exorcism stuff in Anglicanism. In Anglicanism, they don't even have saints. So there's not even real magical powers. They don't even believe in magic. See, that's one thing you got to hand to Catholicism. Catholics believe in magic. They just think magic's evil, but it's like Protestants don't even believe in magic. They're just like, there's no magic, it's just miracles and only Jesus can do them. And it's like heaven is divorced from this earth. They're almost Protestants in the I found the Anglicans to be almost like half atheists. Like at least the crazy Catholics and, you know, more fundamentalists believe in magic, you know, that kind of thing. Really irked me. Yeah, that was a scumbag move by Peter. Correct, Adam. Is being yes. So now, that Simon was a philosopher, there is no doubt. For wherever his exact words are preserved, his synthetic and transcending thoughts are beautifully expressed. The principles of Gnosticism are well described in the following verbatim statement by him, supposed to have been preserved by Hippolytus. So this is Simon Magus himself speaking. To you, therefore, I say what I say, and write what I write. And the writing is this: of the universal aeons. So this is a description of an aeon. There are two shoots, without beginning or end, springing from one root, which is the power invisible, inapprehensible silence, Bifos. Of these shoots one is manifested from above, which is the great power, the universal mind ordering all things, how very Neoplatonic, male, and the other is manifested from below, the great thought, female producing all things. So male top, female bottom, hence pairing with each other, they unite and manifest the middle distance. So PP's touch, and the middle is created. So the woman is actually something chthonic, and the man is something transcendent, and the middle is created through their union. So there's something, not transcendent, there's something logoic, and there's something chthonic, and out of their coming together, form is created, and that whole dichotomy together is only one shoot of the aeon. So incomprehensible air without beginning or end in this is the Father who sustains all things and nourishes those things which have a beginning and end. Sounds pretty based, actually, not gonna lie. Oh, here's Simon Magus being lifted up by demons. Simon Magus. Although the whole thing is the demons were invisible to everyone except for Peter, so actually it would have just looked like Simon was levitating. We just have to trust Peter that they were demons. Sure thing, Peter. Simon Magus, having called upon the spirits of the air, is here shown, being picked up by the demons. St. Peter demands that the evil genii release their hold upon the magician. The demons are forced to comply, and Simon Magus is killed by the fall. R.I.P. R.I.P. My Anglican professor told me that demons aren't real. So Nulu said, my Anglican professor told me demons aren't real. Yeah, this is why Anglicans are cringe. Anglicans are massively cringe. Demons aren't real. Bruh. Shut the fuck up. That's something a demon would say. You know what I'm saying? Anglicanism sounds so lame. It is. It is. He said Jesus exercising demons is metaphors. Bruh. Of the id and ego, so he just psychologizes it as well. Oh, and it's not id and ego, so he's a Freudian. He's not even a Jungian. Bruh. Double cringe. The image presents Simon choking a ratkin furry. Yes, that's pretty funny, actually. And it looks more like he's rubbing his nips. T-Rex screw tapes confirms. Exactly, right? Kimberly says, I wish they weren't real. Yeah, I wish. Yeah, exactly. Demons aren't real. They're just psychological things. That's a psyop, bro. That is a demonic psyop, counter-initiation psyop, done by the left-hand forces themselves. Don't buy into it. Demons real. Angels real. Spirits real. God's real. God's lowercase g real. God capital G real is also real, but it's not a deity, it's satiety. Satiety's beyond deity. Hey, Altuition, welcome. There are no right Anglicans. Yes, correct. Coffee stained mug, welcome to the chat. Coffee stained mug, everything contains positive, negative, and neutral aspects. Gurdjieff would agree. By this, we are to understand that manifestation is the result of a positive and a negative principle, one acting upon the other, and it takes place in the middle plane. It's exactly what we were talking about. See, Gurdjieff. Gurdjieff was right about everything. Or points of equilibrium called the pleroma. The pleroma is a peculiar substance produced out of the blending of spiritual and material aeons. Out of the pleroma was individualized the demiurgus, the immortal mortal, to whom we are responsible for our physical existence and the suffering we must go through. So suffering, the reason for suffering in Gnosticism, it's all the demiurge's fault. And this is a correct opinion, and everyone who feels sorry for the demiurge, get the hell out. Banned, instantly. In connection with it, in the Gnostic system, 3 pairs of opposites, called syzygies, I mean there's a lot of different syzygies depending on the Gnostic system, emanated from the Eternal One. Once again, this is Manly working off of not much in the 1920s. These, with himself, make the total of 7. The 6th, okay, I get it, yeah. So 3 syzygies is 6, and then the demiurge makes the 7th. Aeon's living divine principles were described by Simon in the Philosophumena in the following manner. The first 2 were mind, or nous. You see, I don't like how nous is translated as mind. I just think, although mind nowadays just has a wrong connotation. Nous contains in it more than mind. It should be like heart mind or something, because there's old texts saying how the nous is contained in the heart, not the brain. You know, that this is the old style understanding, so I always have like an exception there. So anyway, mind and thought. Oh, epinoia. Epinoia, okay. Then came voice, phone, and its opposite, name, onoma, okay. And lastly, reason, or logismos, and reflection, ooh, enthemis. So you could possibly say Prometheus and Epimetheus, hindsight and foresight as well, may correspond to these. In a lot of Gnostic Gospels, Prometheus is forethought, so it's foresight and forethought are somewhat similar. You can make a distinction, but you can see them as the same. It's not forethought, specifically foresight. I believe in some Gnostic texts, forethought or foresight is a being in and of itself, and that's usually the Christ. From these, because it's forethought or the Christ, or foresight or the Christ that comes down and helps Pista Sophia, or the fallen Sophia. From these primordial six, united with the eternal flame, came forth the aeons, angels, who formed the lower worlds through the direction of the demiurgus. See the works of H.P. Blavatsky. So he's going off Blavatsky here, who's already a little nanky-panky. We'll read Blavatsky next. We'll dive into the secret doctrine after we finish the secret teachings of all ages. How this first Gnosticism of Simon Magus and Menander, his disciple, was amplified and frequently distorted by later adherents to the cult, but must now be considered. Indeed. Out tuition. Had some videotapes that needed returning, but I have... Oh, okay. Still talking about demons in the chat? Old man shakes fist at Demiurge. Exactly. That's me. Chitta is actually maybe a better term, because it's not mind, it's like mind substance. Nulu, heart, intellect, imagination. Kinda. The schools of Gnosticism was divided into two major parts, commonly the Syrian cult and the Alexandrian cult. So these would have been two different ones. So the Egyptian one and the one in Syria that was... So think of Iamblichus wasn't a Gnostic, but Iamblichus was from Syria. So there's this big... It's really interesting. You know, we have a lot of stuff translated out of ancient Greek. So that Greece, that area. We have a lot of stuff from ancient Greece and Egypt as well, because in ancient, they would have... Alexandria is in Egypt, but they all spoke Greek there. So we have a lot of this Greco-Egyptian knowledge. We have a lot of stuff translated from ancient Greek. And then we have from the Middle East, out of Islam and Persian, Arabic, we've got some stuff. We've got a decent amount of stuff, like Sufi texts, Neoplatonic texts, esoteric texts. And it's like this lineage from, it's a Greco-Egyptian stuff. This Platonism moves into the Oriental sphere, the Arabic sphere, and we get this Oriental Platonism. But there's this middle part, Syria. And we've got there's all this old Syriac texts, and there's just a black hole there. We've got nothing from there translated. So there's this scholarship that hasn't been done, and there's just a black hole. And it's interesting because it's we've got the Greek text, and then we've got the Arabic, Old Arabic, Middle Persian. We got a bunch of texts there. But there's stuff here that's way more developed, and there's stuff here that's more... not basic or primitive, but it's the beginning of it. And then there's just this middle stuff. There's something missing. And it's all in Syria. The missing link is in Syria. Anyway, that's just a little tangent there. Our tuition says, what's your take on Daimon versus Demon? Was Socrates being... Daimon versus Demon, it's the same thing. Demons, look, I'm not going to say demons get a bad rap. I'm going to say everything between the moon and Earth was labeled a demon at one point. And the problem is, yeah, there's things that want to deceive you, But there's things that are just spirits, and you see this you see this later on in texts, especially sort of medieval stuff where magic starts coming back. People need a catch-all phrase to talk about things that aren't demons but aren't angels. So they just use the term spirits. So they kind of start using the term spirit just to mean that. But basically, there's a lot of just things that aren't evil, but they're not, they're not angelic. They're just kind of there. What are elementals? What are, spirits of the air and all these kind of things? So it's like, and it's hard. It just the terminology just gets corrupted and changes after a while. So what was Socrates talking to? Socrates was just talking to a tutelary spirit, which was teaching him, and he called it a daimon. But then the word just kind of gets taken and corrupted. Why are women demons? Says Necrodancer. That's a deep subject, Necrodancer. I'll answer that in the next live stream. Why do most things dislike humans? Here's the thing, Kimberly. Most things may not necessarily dislike humans. Most things may be neutral to humans. But if something is neutral to a human, if you're neutral to something, if you're in the shops and you see a bunch of stuff that you like, but you see some bunch of stuff that you're neutral towards. Do you buy the stuff that you're neutral towards in the shop? No. You don't interact with the things that you're neutral to. So there are things in the universe that are good, there are things in the universe that are bad, but there are things in the universe that may have a neutral position towards humans. Because they're neutral, they'll never interact with us. And because they never interact with us, we don't have a concept of them. So it's like, it's the, what do you call it? It's that property, it's that black swan, it's the, it's the plane, the planes that get, it's that data that you just don't get. So it's like, we think a lot of stuff in the universe is hostile to us, yeah, because it interacts with us. If there's stuff that's neutral to us, it just doesn't interact. So there's stuff that likes us, there's stuff that hates us. And then there's probably 90% of the stuff is neutral to us. So, yeah. Adamu says, I thought Socrates' diamond was an intuition high mind. And so this is where we get into the talk between what's the difference between a guardian angel that's separate to you, to your higher genius, to you could say, the extrapolation of your own higher genius as another entity. These are all different things to get into. Another guy says, I would say entity is a better word than spirit. Yeah. So nowadays, I used to like saying celestial entity instead of instead of working with Olympian spirits or planetary intelligences, just say celestial entity, because they're not really angels, those things, but they ain't demonic. All roads lead back to persona. Anyway, let's get back into it. So schools of Gnosticism. So Manly is just dividing them into the Syrian cult and the Alexandrian cult. So remember, Manly is working in days before the internet, before Wikipedia. So he's not going off of the Persian stuff, the Bogomils, the Cathars. Is he going to mention them? Is he not? We'll see. So these schools agreed in essentials, but the later division was more inclined to be pantheistic. While the former was dualistic. Okay. So the later. So Syrian was dualistic, and the Alexandrian was pantheistic. So the Egyptian Gnostic cults were more pantheistic, and the Syrian cults were hard dualists. I guess that makes sense from his perspective, because the Syrian cults would have been more like the Sethians. The Sethians, that hard Sethian dualism, which, kind of goes into Manichaeanism. And then the Alexandrian, the pantheists, who are more, I guess you could say, Platonic, who, maybe that's like Valentinius, his kind of mob. They were more Neoplatonic. And the Demiurge, he's not a bad guy. He's just ignorant. It's not that the demiurge is evil, it's just that because a veil has been placed over it, it doesn't even know that there's stuff higher than it. So it just works and operates via ignorance. Which is acceptable. Because it's the same situation. Whether the demiurge is evil or it's completely ignorant, there's a problem. And that's the whole thing about Gnosticism. It's like, there's a problem with the universe. It ain't perfect. And we find this in Kabbalah and alchemy. Except in Kabbalah, they reconcile it by saying God deliberately made the universe imperfect. It's incomplete so that you become a co-creator. That then, a part of the reason why you're here, in perfecting yourself, is to aid in perfecting the world by becoming a co-creator. Because creation hasn't finished. Creation is continuing. And this is the same in this is the point of the alchemical work as well. Creation hasn't finished. It's still ongoing. So you can become conscious of and align yourself to those processes and become a co-creator. That's the point. I don't know, Old Testament God sounds kind of nasty. Yes. Yes. While the Syrian cult was largely Simonian, the Alexandrian school was the outgrowth of the philosophic deductions of a clever Egyptian Christian, Basilides by name, who claimed to have received his instruction from the Apostle Matthew. That's very interesting. I believe there's some Nag Hammadi books on Apostle Matthew. I gotta read the. I've read like a bunch of the Nag Hammadi, but I haven't like systematically read it all, or like gone through each and every one. Like Simon Magus, he was an emanationist, so very Platonic, with Neoplatonic inclinations. Oh baby, oh I bet he was. In fact, the entire Gnostic mystery is based upon the hypothesis of emanations as being the logical connection between the irreconcilable opposites. Absolute spirit and absolute substance. So absolute spirit and absolute substance are actually kind of the same thing. There's just this spectrum. And so it's all, this is the the different vibration. It's all a matter of vibration, man. But there's this spectrum between absolute substance and absolute spirit. So there is, ooh, hello, Necrodancer, dropping it again. Another $5. Thank you, Necrodancer. My celestial entity be like JoJo Bizarre Adventure Stand, Guardian Angel Bro to protect my ass from the joggers and boomers. Hail Mary. Thank you, Necrodancer. Thank you. Joggers are archons, which the Gnostics believed to have been coexistent in eternity. So substance, matter, and spirit were coexistence in eternity. So matter and spirit are actually the same. So you know that example, this is one example in the Kybalion. Kybalion I rarely quote, but there's one example it gives that's actually a good kind of example to get your mind around. Think of the idea of hot and cold. When is a thing hot? Well, it's hot when, you know, or when something is hot, it's the atoms in it are vibrating. And when it's cold, they've come to a stationary thing. They've come to a stationary rest. So it's not that hot and cold exist. There's something that exists, and it's either vibrating at this level or vibrating at that level. So it's not that spirit and matter are two different things. There's actually a secret third thing that's either vibrating at an incredibly high up point, and therefore it's spirit, or it's vibrating at a very low frequency, and therefore it's matter. But it's actually not spirit or matter, it's a secret third thing. That's kind of the idea of absolute substance and absolute spirit. Yeah, water and ice, exactly. The Norse were correct. It's actually just what do they call it? It's Gununga Gap, the howling void, and within the void there's the fire and ice, the two extremes that come together and then create. So some assert that Basilides nuts was the true founder of Gnosticism, but there is much evidence to the effect that Simon Magus laid down its fundamental principles in the preceding century. And now I think from the Nag Hammadi... Ooh. God damn it, my freaking camera just died again. I don't know why it does this. I'm working on like a... Oh, sorry. That's the wrong one. Video capture device. I got a Logitech, bro. And sometimes this happens, sometimes it doesn't. Just got to reset it. I don't know if someone can help me out, tell me why that happens. Is it happening on your end? Yeah, it does look like that. Anyway, that's weird. What am I talking about here? Yeah, so we know nowadays from the Nag Hammadi and more scholarship that Gnosticism, its roots probably extend further back, even pre-Christian. It seems to be some pre-Christian Gnosticism happening. And then what happens is Jesus happens. And then the Gnostics are like, Jesus, he's a cool guy, and it just gets integrated. And so Simon Magus and Basilides aren't actually founders, they are continuers of a tradition that was prior to them. Webcam demon, exactly. I'm just being too heretical to the ancient Gnostics, and they're just like, we cast camera malfunction. Runialdo in the chat. Hey Richard, off-topic question, man. I'm sorry, you always talk about purification being the first step in initiation. How does one purify themselves? I always talk about it. Do I? That's my take on Steiner's. Steiner says that. Steiner says purification, illumination, initiation. And my take on that is purification is not, slap some water on yourself and then, do less gooning and more edging. It's more, purity isn't moral. Purity, in an esoteric sense, is, and I use the example of metals. When you think of a metal that's pure, it's not pure because it's shiny or something. It's pure because it doesn't have anything mixed in. Pure iron is just iron. All the fat's been burned away. Pure gold is pure gold because there's no other element mixed into it. There's no copper or brass mixed into it. Pure silver, pure mercury. It's just mercury. It's just one thing. Why is it hard to meditate? You close your eyes and thoughts come. There's this and that. It's like you're split. You're an individual. You're not just one thing. You're an aggregate of different desires that all go in different places. Why can masters meditate? When they close their eyes, they're one thing. Silence. This is what purity is. To purify means to become one. To purify, so that's why purify is actually you could say cultivating attention, cultivating, bracketing yourself from your desires, and not just your desires, your impulses, your thoughts, your memories, your physical compulsions. When you sit and you want to scratch and you don't do it, you're bracketing everything away until you're just one thing, separate kind of from the universe. This is the separatio of the alchemists. You have those different stages: putrefaction, dissolution. There's a part in alchemy called the separatio, which precedes the conjunctio, or the conjunction. So you kind of need, because we're all mixed up and we don't know what we are. So you need to achieve separatio, separate your essence, bracket everything away, and then you have this one thing, this one little monadic, one little essence, one little little spark, little solar principle that can be the ground, that then you can achieve conjunctio and kind of bring it back together. This is what the first part of the work is. Scouse says, sensor and camera overheating. Maybe I'm just like gesticulating and it can't keep up and it just shuts down. Or something like that. Nulu says, I've heard some people online say Kabbalah and Gnosticism are really rooted in the secrets of the Persian Magi. Possible. I think that, from what I understand now, I think Gnosticism and Hermeticism and late Platonism are literally all branches of the same thing. They're just radically different schools and texts. Here's the thing, when you think of late Platonism, what do you think? You think Iamblichus and Porphyry and Plotinus and things like that, but those guys were so different in their thinking. We lump them into a category of Neoplatonism, but like Porphyry and Iamblichus were completely different, almost completely different systems in some places. And so when you think about it like that, and then you look at Hermeticism, and then you look at Gnosticism, you could potentially say they're actually all one thing, just radically different chapters. And if you say that, then what's the ultimate conspiracy about Plato and the Greek philosophers? They say Plato internalized the teachings of Heraclitus, the world is fire, conflux. And what is the world of... Who else said the world is fire? That, you know, fire is the prime thing. Fire, the fire cults of the East, the Magi, the Zoroastrians. And then there's that whole thing about, what is it? It's the source is Aristotle. He says at Plato's funeral, a Magi from the East attended Plato's funeral. You're like, And then there's, what do they call it? There's a Gnostic sect called the Carpocratians? And I think it's the Carpocratians. There's one Gnostic sect where they found their grottos, and they found statues in their grottos of their saints. It's like Jesus, Moses, and they also have Plato. And it's like, So it could very well be that, you know, Gnosis is a continuation of a Persian psyop. But, you know, who knows really? Who knows really? We must awaken and access the Akashic records. Find our way. That's what we need to do. Do something operative to find the hidden knowledge locked away. Puts the lotion on its skin. Coffee Stained Mug says, oh my god, Richard, how much of this stuff do you think may have been created to get us used to the connecting of the intra-body communication and Siemens digital twin technology? What? I don't understand the question. I'm sorry, Coffee. Your poo-poo. Rune Yaldo in the chat, thank you for the answer. No problem, Rune. No problem. My chakras are distorting the recordings. Out tuition. Like how there's a wedding tradition of the bride and groom being separated before the wedding ceremony. That's interesting. Yeah, exactly. Separatio conjunctio. It's all alchemy. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why my camera does it, man. Interesting fact, Manly once said the song Miracles by the ICP, what? Inspired him to write this very book. What is it? Axax T in the chat says, Insane Clown Posse, really it was the true inspiration behind Manly P. Hall. That's crazy. You know what? I believe it. Coin Noah in the chat, or no Coiner in the chat. Have I been saying your name wrong this entire time? Or did you switch Coin Noah to No Coiner? Anyway, thank you for the $5. Your little message. It's like they started the same but branched based on cult of personality of the teachers that inherited it and perhaps their intentions. Yeah, exactly. That could very well be. This is the late Platonists, the Hermeticists, and the Gnostics being the same thing. So it's like there's this one thing, and the late Platonists just kind of stuck to more, you know, Pythagorean, Platonic stuff. The Hermeticists mixed that more Egyptian, Hermetic, Hermes Trismegistus. They used that as the central figure, and the Gnostics are really just Hermeticists who used, instead of Hermes Trismegistus, Jesus as their central figure. That's why the Nag Hammadi library, it contained a whole bunch of Gnostic texts, but people forget there's a bunch of Hermetic texts, and like a copy of Plato's Republic was also found in Nag Hammadi. So it's literally Platonism, Hermeticism, and Gnosticism. It's like a trinity, like three dudes with their peepees out, all touching. Peepees touch extraordinarily in these ancient ways, and scholars have this thing. They want to bracket it all and say, no, it's different, and make categories, but that's just a scholar thing. They love to filter things and make categories, but really, the peepees all touch in the end. Coin Noah, you're dyslexic. Thank you. So I did it again. No Coiner. Your name is No Coiner. I gotta remember that. Good lord. I can't believe I've been dyslexic that long. Another guy says, what if you go to the Akashic records and someone's privatized it, and to get access you have to pay 10,000 astral coins? Means you got to, I guess, well, how do you get astral coins then? We got to know the rest of the game, man. Nulu says, Richard, is it true noble families get taught this stuff at a young age? Nah, it depends what noble families, if they've kept the lineage. So, like, take the royal family. I doubt many of them have much knowledge, but then you hear stuff every now and then, how, you know, oh, they're connected to the Freemasons. No, they're not. There's one guy in the royal family, Prince Michael of Kent, who's the head of, and not Masonry, there's a specific chapter of Masonry called Mark Masonry, and he's like grand poobah of the Mark Masons, Prince Michael of Kent. So he would probably know some stuff, but I doubt, like, you know. And like, what is it? Who's the king now? The king is a avid reader of Rene Guénon, so he clearly knows stuff, but not all of them. There's gonna be dum-dums and there's gonna be big boys. Like in all places. Yeah, astral NFTs, astral gambling. We got to get to the astral casinos to get some astral coins, play some astral blackjack, and they kick you out for counting cards. Oh no, astral blackjack, they play with tarot cards. Dude, that'd be crazy. Could you go more into the PP touching? Intrigued. Esoteric space docking is when just the doctrines actually connect, but the scholars are like, no, they're different things. But it's like, no, perennialism is actually real. Scholars are just trying to psyop us. That's my conspiracy. It's just a conspiracy theory I have, but I like, for real, I just haven't read enough. I'm just one man. We need to get back to this book, by the way, guys. We're 50 minutes in. Let's keep going. Where are we even? Astral spirits. This was all we were talking about. Substance, absolute substance and spirit. Anyway, let me just get back here. Which the Gnostics believed to have been coexistent to eternity. Okay, some assert. Oh, yeah, that's right. The founders. Okay, founders. The Alexandrian Basilides inculcated Egyptian Hermeticism, Oriental occultism, Chaldean astrology, and there's the other thing: the Chaldeans and the Babylonian, because astrology comes from Babylon. The Chaldea, for those who don't know, is where Babylon is. So what's the? I'm sorry, I'm trying to think of the timeline. It's Sumerian, Assyrian. So the kingdom, Samaria wasn't a united kingdom. There was a culture called Samaria that had a bunch of city-states. Is it the Akkadians arise? And that's an actual, there's one king who rules the Akkadians. And then after that, it's the Assyrians. And then the Babylonians. And then I think the Chaldeans are there, but they're only there for like 300 years. They're there for like a really short amount of time. And then it's the Neo-Babylonians. And then it's the Neo-Assyrians. And then Median tribes congregate together and Persia arises. It's all in that area, or around that kind of, sorry, it's not all in that area, but Persia becomes the main force. But yeah, in Mesopotamia, this is that historical continuation. And when you say Chaldea, it's in that period between the fall of Old Babylon and the rise of the Neo-Babylon and Neo-Assyrian cultures. I might be like getting this wrong. I looked this up ages ago because I'm like, people keep talking about Chaldea. What even is Chaldea? It's actually this really small period where they had like a little golden age, and supposedly that's astrology comes from that period, or what we know as astrology comes from that period. And then it travels to China and it travels to Greece and Egypt, and it elaborates in different ways. But when people talk about Chaldean, that's what they're talking about. So they mean, and is it this catch-all, it's roots? We were just talking about the roots. Did they come from Persia, the Persian Magi? It may have even been before them. It may have even been the star worshippers of ancient Chaldea. Because we don't really have anything from them. We've got like the Chaldean Book of Numbers, which supposedly is a source for primitive Kabbalah that's pre-Hebraic. And then we have the Chaldean oracles, which Iamblichus quotes, and we have them a translation of nowadays, but it's like, what else do we know of them? Anyway, so the big tangent there. Atlantis, maybe they're survivors of Atlantis. Could very well be. Sorry, I just read the chat there. Enter the Comcast network. i.e. the Akashic Records. Yeah, okay, cool. Prince Edward, Duke of Kent, is the Grand Master of the United Grand Lodge of England. Is he? Okay. Prince Edward, Duke of Kent. I thought Prince Michael of Kent. Duke of Kent. Freemason? Is a prominent figure serving as the... Oh, so he's serving? He's been serving that since 1967. Damn, okay. Thought, yeah, okay. Prince Edward, Who am I thinking of when I said Prince Michael? Grand Master of the Lodge. Okay, so there is a Prince Michael of Kent. So there's a Prince Edward of Kent and a Prince Michael of Kent. And they're both Freemasons. And one's UGLE and then the other one is Mark Masons. Interesting. Very interesting. So it seems like the mainline royal family that we all get news on and everyone obsesses about, they don't really have much, but it seems to be the branches that actually go into things like this and actually have the esoteric knowledge. Very interesting. Yeah, so I knew Michael was the Mark Grandmaster. I just didn't know Edward was also... I didn't know there was another prince there. Huh. Maybe there's more than I thought. Interesting. Hey, Akash in the chat. Welcome. Sorry, another guy says, foundation of astrology, ? Or only an important part of astrology? Yeah, so that's true as well. The Chaldean period, because this is the thing, the oldest texts on astrology we have are still complete. It's not like, in a science, how it starts off on one thing and then it builds up and it builds up. The oldest texts on astrology we have all the signs, have, all the constellations, have all the calculations, have all these things. It's a complete system as it arrives to us in history. So it's not like something that's slowly built up. We don't have the slow build up. So it could even be that there's another civilization that predates Babylon, that predates Chaldea, that were the actual creators of. But for lack of that, the sources, all astrology in the world seems to come from that Babylonian Chaldean place at the very least. So any civilization prior to that, I am trying to say it was Atlantis. It's Atlantis. Post-Newitt clarity. Okay, that's funny. That's funny, Petra. Astrological texts existed in Vedic times. Yeah, so makes me wonder, because there's also Chinese astrology is very ancient, but we know Chinese astrology has some connection to ancient Babylon, the Middle East as well. So it seems like, and China and India both in the Far East, and so it does seem like there is like this Atlantean conspiracy. Anyway, where are we up to? Bruh, I'm tripping. Doctrine, something, blah, 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 blah. Okay, I just tripped out of the Chaldean thing, didn't I? And his doctrine sought to unite the schools of early Christianity with the ancient pagan mysteries. And so this is what it's kind of seemed like. Gnosticism is just Christianity plus paganism, but no, we know different nowadays. To him is attributed the formulation of peculiar concept of the deity, which carries the name of Braxis. Okay, so Basilides Nuts is seen as the creator of Abraxas, or the custodian of Abraxas. In discussing the original meaning of this word, Mr. Higgins, in his Celtic Druids, has demonstrated that the numerological powers of the letters forming the word Abraxas, when added together, result in the sum of 365. The same author also notes that the name Mithras, when treated in a similar manner, has the numerical value. Well, there you go. I think Manly P. believed Abraxas and Mithras to be very similar. Basilides caught that the powers of the universe were divided into 365 aeons of spiritual cycles, and the sum of all these together was the Supreme Father. And to him he gave the Kabbalistic appellation Abraxas, as being symbolically, numerologically, of his divine powers, attributes, and emanations. Abraxas is usually symbolized as a composite creature, with a body of a human being and a head of a rooster or cock, and with each of his legs ending in a serpent. C.W. King, in his Gnostics and Their Remains, gives the following concise description of the Gnostic philosophy of Basilides, quoting from the writings of the early Christian bishop and martyr, Saint Irenaeus. He asserted that God, the uncreated eternal Father, had first brought forth nous, or mind, this the Logos, word, this again, Pronesis? Intelligence. That's interesting. And this is the thing, intelligence or the intellectus is different from mind and logos, which is very interesting. And from Pronesis sprung Sophia, wisdom, and dynamis, strength. So strength comes from wisdom. Remember that, boys. In describing Abraxas, C.W. King says, Bellarmine considers the composite image inscribed with the actual name Abraxas to be a Gnostic pantheos, representing the supreme being with the 5 emanations marked out by appropriate symbols. From the human body, the usual form assigned to the deity, spring the 2 supporters, nous and logos, expressed in the serpent's symbols of the inner senses and the quickening understanding on which account the Greeks had made the serpent the attribute of Pallas. His head, that of a cock, represents Pronesis, the intellectus. Okay. That bird being the emblem of foresight, of vigilance. His 2 arms holding the symbols of Sophia and Dynamis, the shield of wisdom and the whip of power. Baby. The lion-faced light power. This guy. This Gnostic gem represents by its serpentine body the pathway of the sun, and by its lion head the exaltation of the solar in the constellation of Leo. That's interesting. So the path of the sun, so because it's making an infinity symbol and it's a solar thing. Yeah, okay. So the serpent is actually a path. The lion-headed serpent is the path of the sun. Okay, you know what? Yeah, that's hot. That's hot. Was Irenaeus an angry man? Yes, 100%. 100%. Out tuition. I'm not going to say what kind of text. It was an Atlantean text, yeah. That Kanye bit, yeah. Yeah, I'm channeling Kanye West there. Yaldabaoth is a cool symbol, but it's so overused by ex-wizards that it's gotten cringe to me. Yeah, Nulu. I agree. Pathway of the sun, another guy. Exactly. Necrodancer, another $5. Thank you so much. Where is the plushies? The plushies coming. Plushies in the mail. The plushies in the mail. Which, by the way, we're a quarter of the way up for our new stretch goal. If you reach 20 donations in this stream, I'll wear a top hat for the rest of the streams. Real. For every Manly P. Hole stream, I'll wear a top hat. The Gnostics were divided in their opinions concerning the Demiurgus, or creator of the lower worlds with which we are in. He established the terrestrial universe with the aid of 6 suns or emanations, possibly the planetary angels, which he formed out of and yet within himself. As stated before, the Demiurgus was individualized as the lowest creation out of the substance called Pleroma. One group of Gnostics was of the opinion that the Demiurgus was the cause of all misery and was an evil creature, who by building this lower world had separated the souls of men from truth by encasing them in mortal vehicles. Why'd you do it, Demiurge? Why did you do it? The other sect viewed the Demiurgus as being divinely inspired and merely fulfilling the dictates of the invisible Lord. So he's just an architect, bro. We don't need to put so much on his shoulders. Some Gnostics were of the opinion that the Jewish god Jehovah was the Demiurgus. And this is where we get Marcionism combining with Gnosticism. This concept, under a slightly different name, apparently influenced medieval Rosicrucianism. So this is a thought that was... What's her name? Who's the Rosicrucian Enlightenment lady? I've forgotten her name. I think Arthur Edward Waite also took from this as well. Who wrote the Rosicrucian Enlightenment? Oh my god. Can't believe I've forgotten her name. Francis Yates. Francis Yates and Arthur Edward Waite had this the same opinion. I believe it was their same opinion. That the kind of Gnostics, the Rosicrucians, became a continuation of the Gnostics, which some Rosicrucians would definitely say no. Definitely would say no. Scouse donating £5. Thank you, Scouse. A monocle would be a nice touch. So you want me to wear a monocle as well as a top hat? We'll see. We'll see how many people donate. Amethystinalakari in the chat says Gigi Young and nothing else. I don't know. Okay. I don't know what that why are you bringing up Gigi Young here? Banned. No, I'm kidding. Sorry, this concept under a slightly different name apparently influenced medieval Rosicrucianism. I don't know about that though. Medieval Rosicrucians didn't think that the God of the Old Testament was evil. They just hated the church. The Rosicrucians were esoteric Protestants, basically. Early esoteric Protestants. So think of, yeah, another guy, a monocle. So think, it's not what are the Rosicrucian manifestos? There's the Fraternitatis, Confessio, and the Alchemical Wedding. I believe it's in the Confessio. The Confessio literally begins with calling the Pope the Antichrist. That's in the Rosicrucian manifestos. John the Cactus with 10 USD. Thank you very much. Demanding that top hat. Everyone who wants to see me in a top hat, donate now. We get to 20. We get to 20 and you get top hats, baby. Yeah. And then the next stretch goal will be a pipe, and then the next stretch goal will be a monocle. Out tuition. So is the demiurge within the center of the earth, or what? Is he bros hanging out on an earth plane? So it's kind of like he's in a higher plane, but not the true spirit world. So there's like the place of the light, and then below the place of the light is the aeons, and then below the aeons is the demiurge, and then below the demiurge is the astral world, where you get like the different beings and angels that then mold matter, i.e. the physical world, and then we're in the physical world. So it's kind of two extrapolations. Up is the demiurge, but then beyond the demiurge is more stuff. Now, Rosicrucianism, which viewed Jehovah as the Lord of the material universe rather than as the supreme deity. So once again, Rosicrucians, I don't think so. They don't like the Pope. They think he's the Antichrist. Rosicrucians are pro-nature. Rosicrucians are actually a little German. With the German mysticism, they engage with nature because they see, it's the Venus of nature. They see God in nature. They're a little pantheistic in that sense. What is it? German quietism, where it's like they, the church sees themselves as the middleman between God, you and God. It's like you need to kind of go to the church to access God, whereas the German quietists, the German mystics were like, no, I have God within me. So they're Gnostics in a sense. In that sense, they're Gnostics. Yeah, I agree. But it's like, I have God within me, I can feel that, but what I feel within me as God, I also see in nature. So God is in nature. That was and hence why they call the quietists. They need to be quiet about that shit, or else, the Inquisition's going to come up and start asking some questions. And it's that German quietism, that German mysticism, which what Rosicrucian really is italic hermeticism. Kind of hermeticism was reviving in the 15th century, and that moved up, mixed with German mysticism, and then in the early 1600s we get the Rosicrucian manifestos. That's what Rosicrucianism is. It's italic hermeticism and German mysticism fusing together in medieval Christian Europe. Right after the Reformation as well. So it's esoteric Protestantism with hermeticism and German mysticism mixed in. Mythology abounds with the stories of gods who partook of both celestial and terrestrial natures. Odin of Scandinavia is a good example of a deity subject to mortality, bowing before the laws of nature, and yet being, in a certain sense, at least a supreme deity. Yeah, Odin's interesting. The Norse stuff is interesting because, by definition, the Norse stuff, via my definition of Gnosticism, the Norse systems, the Norse mythology, Norse paganism is also a system of Gnosticism. Who is the highest god? You know, the Norse try to imitate gods. Who's their highest god? It's not like Hulk smash Tyr or, you know, Thor. It's Odin. What's Odin? Odin is a god of knowledge. What's Odin's main myth? It's him literally looking into a well of knowledge to get more knowledge. And then he crucifies himself. To himself. Sacrifices himself to himself on a tree. Tree? Kabbalah? Tree of knowledge. What? Who said what? The Norse system is a highly esoteric cosmology of Gnosticism. Straight up. Let's go. Rune yoga. Let's do it. The Gnostic point of view concerning the Christ is well worthy of consideration. This order claims to be the only sect to have actual pictures of the divine Syrian. Well, these were, in all probability, idealistic conceptions of the Saviour based upon existing sculpturings and paintings of the pagan sun god. They were all Christianity. Full stop. To the Gnostics, the Christ was the personification of Nous, the divine mind, and emanated from the higher spiritual aeons. He descended into the body of Jesus at the baptism, and left it again before the crucifixion. So this is another heresy. The Gnostics declared that the Christ was not crucified. Different Gnostic sects have different takes. Some say he did, some say he switched with Matthew, some say he was just floating above his body and it was an illusion and he's just laughing at everybody. Anyway, as the divine Nous could not suffer death, but that Simon, the Cyrenian, offered his life instead. Yeah, so he replaced. He did the old switcheroo. Troll Master Jesus back at it again. Offered his life instead, and that the Nous, by means of its power, caused Simon to resemble Jesus. So Jesus has like this faceless, face-changing ability. It's really weird. In a lot of the Gnostic Gospels, he's got like, that's one of his main faculties. Irenaeus makes the following statement concerning the cosmic sacrifice of the Christ. Whence the uncreated, unnamed Father saw the corruption of mankind, he sent his firstborn Nous into the world in the form of Christ, for the redemption of all who believe in him. Out of power of those who have fabricated the world, the Demiurgus and his 6 sons, the planetary genii, he appeared amongst men as the man Jesus and wrought miracles. So this is interesting. So in Gnosis, the Christ is then this thing that descended into Christ and came out of Christ. This is another heresy, and this is what makes Gnosticism similar to a kind of Arianism. So how they would have viewed that is then you can also incarnate the Christ. You do this sacred rites, and your sacred initiation rites has Christ come into you. You gain kind of Christic knowledge, and you have powers for a certain amount of time. Hence their breaking of bread and wine, their communion, would have been like a sacred rite to bring the Christ into the priest, so that it's like you can do that breaking of the bread and wine and do that ritual with literally the Christ there being embodied by the priest. So the priest literally becomes Jesus in that moment, and then leaves again. So it's like it's very interesting. It's very interesting that then the Gnostics and their rituals. Just checking out some more chat. Outtuition says, I thought he was cast down. Yeah, he was cast down out of the plane of the aeons into a lower realm. You see, it's hard because there's stuff above us, you know, the astral realm, where the demiurge is, other realms, the other intermediary realms. They're not the dwelling place of the light, but they're higher than where we are, hence our confusion. From what you say, sounds like the demiurge is in the mental plane. Yeah. Could very well be. Roses be more Hermetic than Gnostic, honestly. Exactly, Surf, exactly. I guess I'm a Tomberg Martinist, as in Valentine Tomberg, Meditation on the Tarot, where I believe much of Peter, faith, and John Gnosis are one. Yes. Good, Nulu, good. John the Cactus, do the Gnostics claim Jesus' teachings were Gnostic? So the Gnostics claim, you know, Jesus gave these teachings, but he also gave secret teachings, and those are the ones that are important. So the Gnostics are more like, you know, he gave parables to the people, but then he gave secret teachings to his inner circle, and here's the secret teachings. Secret book of John, secret book of Peter, secret book of Matthew. That's what their take is. So the Gnostics wouldn't reject the Bible. They would just be like, that's kindergarten. Now here's real shit, i.e. the Nag Hammadi. That's how they would see it. Nulu, that makes sense. Since Luther's family's crest is a rose. Yeah, and that's one thing that's interesting about Martin Luther and Rosicrucianism. Just wait, Mr. Higgins. Mr. Higgins, please. So angels and demons would be both under the demiurge, perhaps working for it. Yeah, and so this is the thing that's interesting. Angels come from the demiurge, but they're a higher, superior order of angels that come from the light. And so really, there are some things we call angels that are more archons. They just work for the demiurge. Because it's like when you see this in Hebraism, like the angels don't like us. In Kabbalah, when you ascend, the angels don't like you ascending, and you have to give them passwords or they beat the shit out of you. Those aren't angels. Those are archons. But there are higher, in Gnosticism, there are higher things, like Angel Elilath, from the hypostasis of the archons. The angel Elilath that comes down and like dictates to Noria, the daughter of Adam and Eve, very interesting, and tells Noria the true story of creation. And it's like that angel Elilath actually comes not from the demiurge, but from like the dwelling place of the light above the demiurge. So there's like these, and it's one of those things, whether it comes from the demiurge, an angel comes from the demiurge, or the dwelling place of the light, it still comes from a place above us. So for us, it's like super hard. Is this a false light being, or is this a real light being? That's where it all gets. And that's not even talking about demons then. And then it's this other thing as well. Who are the demons? Are demons then good guys because some of them hate the demiurge? A lot of things can get a little left-hand pathy here, if you know what I mean. If you know what I mean. A lot of peepees can touch in surprising ways. Goddamn, the chat's going super fast now. Jormungundir equal demiurge question marks is our tuition. So Jormungundir from Norse mythology. Yeah. I mean, it's hard. It's not a one-to-one cognate in cosmology, obviously. Just the Norse cosmology is very elaborate. And it's because Jormungundir is the world serpent, just the thing that binds the world together. I don't know. Jormungundir is more like the Leviathan or something. A being that the demiurge commands. Because remember in the book of Job, there's that interesting bit where God is flexing. And God, to flex, he says, I control the Leviathan, which is something that even the demons and angels fear. So there's a creature, something that exists under the ocean, that not just freaks out demons, but even angels freak out about it. Literally, Cthulhu is in the Bible. Leviathan is a being that's not demonic. It's just this other thing that exists, and it's such a giga-chad it can even fight and beat the shit out of angels. Angels fear it. And God is basically flexing and saying, even I can command the Leviathan. And that's what Jormungundir is. So Jormungundir isn't necessarily the demiurge. Jormungundir is this weird principle, which is just absolute like restriction, absolute limit. Like not even angels and demons can fight against it. But, you know, the demiurge could command it if he wanted to. Nick D, welcome. You can see runes in your dreams. You can't really read words when you're dreaming. That's interesting, actually. Yes. Talking about Jesus as a shapeshifter. Adamu says Luna busty goth mummy versus solar freckled tomboy girlfriend lol. Why not both? Been reading a book on Kabbalah and Goetic magic from Thomas Carlson. Oh, that okay. I haven't read that. I keep seeing that everywhere. It's got a really cool cover, and it mentions the crucifixion of Odin exactly how you described, lol. Hey, on the right track. Nice. Very based. If you read that book, tell me about it. Tell me about it later. Because should I get it? Is it good? Is it good? Give me a recommendation. I'm about 7 minutes behind. How much do you need to wear a monocle and a top hat? Just keep donating. We got to reach the goal of 20 donations, and I'll read a top hat, and then the next one will be pipe. Monocle will be the last one. That's just, yeah. So I need 20 donations, and then 20 more, and then 20 more after that. Give me money. Nulu. Archons. So the only beings surviving are the beings who are part of darkness created by the demiurge? I don't know. What are we talking about in chat? Yeah, and different Gnostic sects believe slightly different stuff. So that's another thing that mixes it all together. Isn't Leviathan what the Hebrew letter spell of satanic pentagram spell? I don't know. I don't know what the reference is. Righty, we're getting close to the end. Let's keep going. Let's see if we can get halfway through this. We're almost halfway through. We're making decent progress here, guys. The Gnostics divided humanity into three parts. Those who are savages, i.e. Hylics, worshipped only the visible nature. Those who, like the Jews, worshipped the demiurgus. And lastly, themselves or others of a similar cult, including certain sects of Christians who worshipped Nous, Christ, and the true spiritual light, or higher aeons. So, Hylics, psychics, and pneumatics. After the death of Basilides, Valentinius became the leading inspiration of the Gnostic movement. He still further complicated the system of Gnostic philosophy by adding infinitely to the details. He increased the number of emanations from the Great One, the Abyss, to 15 pairs, and also laid much emphasis on the Virgin Sophia, or wisdom. In the books of the Saviour, part of which are commonly known as the Pistis Sophia, oh baby, Pistis Sophia mentioned, everyone donate now, may be found much material concerning this strange doctrine of aeons and their strange inhabitants. James Freeman Clarke, in speaking of the doctrines of the Gnostics, he says, these doctrines, strange as they seem to us, had a wide influence in the Christian church. Oh baby, I wish Christianity was as based nowadays. Many of the theories of the ancient Gnostics, especially those concerning scientific subjects, have been substituted by modern research. Several sects branched off from the main stem of Gnosticism, such as Valentinius, the Ophites, serpent worshippers, and the Adamites. After the 3rd century, their power waned, and the Gnostics practically vanished from the philosophic world. So, yeah, after the 3rd century, they vanish. They don't vanish. After the 3rd century, they appear in Manichaeism in Persia, and then after they collapse in Persia, they appear in Bogomils in Europe, and then after the Bogomils, it's Cathars in France, and then the Albigensian Crusade finally crushes them in 1000 AD, and the Age of Alchemy begins, and then in the 16th century, Rosicrucianism begins, and then there's the Hermetic Renaissance in the late 1800s, and then we get an occult revival in the 1970s, and now we're in the internet age where everyone's getting esoteric again, and our peepees can finally touch, and we can put it all together before everyone gets nuked. An effort was made during the Middle Ages to resurrect the principles of Gnosticism, but owing to the destruction of their records and the material necessary was not available. Even today, there are evidences of Gnostic philosophy in the modern world, but they bear other names, and their true origin is not suspected. Many of the Gnostic concepts that have actually been incorporated into the dogmas of the Christian Church and our newer interpretations of Christianity are often along the lines of Gnostic emanationism. Very interesting. Another guy says, at Richard, when I finish the book, I'll give you a rec or not, but it's interesting for now. Okay, cool. Yeah, that book, it looks interesting. Dragon Rouge, Dragon Rouge founder, interesting guy. Outtuition says, I love the concept of the entrance to hell being the mouth of Leviathan. Very interesting. So metal. Gives you a power scaling. Yeah, I know, right? That's very Egyptian as well. I'm pretty sure the entrance to their abyss was like that crocodile-headed demon. Keep on forgetting his name, like Keb or something. We need a Pistis Sophia read-through. Bruh, that's going to be the last one. Pistis Sophia's friggin'... It gets elaborate. I read that like cover to cover when I was like early 20s, and I'm not going to say I understood it at all. Gnostics would say we have a soul from infinity that has amnesia because our body is a cage and we need to break the cage through gnosis. And Jesus came to teach us this. Yeah, basically. That's a good outline. Adamu says, Adamites? Exactly. That's our Gnostic group, Adamu. Scouse for the £5. Funny you mentioned getting nuked. I was told during an LSD trip that we are in a fading loop caused by nuclear destruction. It happened to Atlantis. It happened to the Aztecs. It happened to the ancient Mesopotamian Empire. It'll happen to us. Fulcanelli has that whole thing. Or there's that story of Fulcanelli, how he disappears, and then people went in the 1920s, they went looking for him. And I think there was that French physicist that met Fulcanelli, and Fulcanelli, the claim is Fulcanelli told him to be wary of, like, the nuclear program, because he said, we've unlocked that power before. So there's been nukes have happened before, hence why some ancient sites have radiation on them. It's all a circle. It's all a circle. Anyway, we're reaching... We found a good place. This is a good place to stop. The mysteries of Asarhapi. This looks like we're getting into the Egyptian. Hapi is the Egyptian god of the Nile. Pretty sure he's a hermaphrodite as well, so a femboy. Yeah, we'll come back next week. Thank you all for joining. If you want to support these streams, please do consider donating via the Coffee account or via chat. For those in the future, I've got that Coffee account. I've got PayPal. I've got some crypto wallets because I hate taxes. But also, and also, next week, everybody, I'm going to be away next week on vacation. I'm going to see my mum. So next week, instead of doing a read-through, because I'm not going to be at my home console, probably do the Q&A. The quarterly Q&A I'll do as my little vacation screen. So yeah, that's next week. Tune in next week, same time, not for a manly reading, but for the quarterly Q&A. Thank you all for coming along. And I'll see y'all next week. Mwah.